e-commerce meeting the
Thank you,
other day.
George. Up next, we will discuss how blockchain is strengthening supply chain. Blockchain technology is transforming supply chain management, a system that must function quickly and accurately in modern society facing food sanitation and health pandemics. Having a single source of truth with a shared ledger allows for greater collaboration, transparency, and traceability. Today, we have here with us a number of industry pioneers that are transforming the way businesses trade globally. And here to moderate is Jonathan Johnson, the CEO of Overstock and president of Medici Ventures.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you, Perry Ann, and the Digital Chamber for hosting this event. We've got a great topic, how blockchain is being used in the supply chain. You know, we used to call the internet the information superhighway because it changed the way we traded information. We could do so freely and frictionlessly. We might call blockchain technology the digital asset or even the asset superhighway because it's changing the way we can transfer and move assets freely and frictionlessly. Today, we've got four great people on the panel that are involved in supply chain and blockchain spaces. I'd like to introduce each of them. I'd ask that they talk about the problem that they're trying to solve with blockchain and why blockchain is useful in that. We'll start with Shane Bigelow, CEO and founder of Onum. Shane?
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Perry Ann, for hosting another great event. At Onum, we create different companies that digitize different vital records, and particularly on point is what we do with Vital Chain. Vital Chain is our company that digitizes and makes your medical record more useful. So the problem with most medical records is that getting the data out of it is actually pretty hard to do, and to make it useful is even harder. In fact, there are lots of systems set up to make it definitely hard to get that data out. What we do is we integrate with a variety of data providers in the medical system and pull that data out and make it something you can put on your phone. The advantage to that is that you can now do things like show your test records or vaccination records right from your phone. You can, which is particularly useful in a COVID environment. You can take things such as your whether you had a physical or whether or not you need a disability placard and process them directly with hospitals and other facilities. And the reason why blockchain matters so much to this is that you have the ability to have an immutable ledger that can be audited and used by consumers or by healthcare professionals is integral to the success of what we're offering, because they have to feel confident that the data wasn't misused. HIPAA and other requirements certainly add to that. Current singular database worlds just don't enable that, whereas Vital Chain and what we're doing with blockchain does. So that's the quick answer, Jonathan. I hope I didn't go too long.
That's great. That's great, Shane. I'm eager to chat more about what Onum and Vital Chain are doing. Next, let me introduce Luis Macias, who is the CEO and founder of GrainChain, which is using blockchain in the supply chain in the dry goods area. Luis, tell us more about what you're doing.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Digital Chamber, for inviting me here today. GrainChain was established mainly to understand not only the supply chain records that are coming from farmers into facilities, into buyers, into sellers, but what it's really doing is it's trying to legitimize not only what is coming from the fields, what is being processed and how it's getting there, but it's really being able to use that information to create efficient and fast settlements. And what we're trying to do is put out a suite of products that touch different parts of the supply chain, including origin information, logistics information, inventory information. And we're using IoT integration to be able to validate that information. So we're taking the power out of people and giving it to systems to be able to validate the information that's coming in. Having that type of information allows us to feed it to our digital ledger, and it allows us to feed it to our blockchain so that we can settle these in a very fast manner. What it does is it not only validates the data, but it ensures that contracts are being executed properly. We create a very, very powerful ecosystem, an ecosystem that allows us to give liquidity to farmers, an ecosystem that gives trust to the transactions that are being committed, and it starts leveling the playing field for all of our participants. It gives our farmers a little more, a bigger piece of the pie. It brings them up with a sword and a shield in the industry, and it shows that not only are they doing things right, not only are their products following good sustainable practices, but what it also does is it gives them a little bit more ability to ask for more money, get a little more piece of that dollar that goes to the food supply industry. What we're trying to do overall is really give transparency to this, give the ability for farmers, for buyers, and for all the banks and participants in the industry a very, very strong, clear, and transparent record that cannot be modified, it cannot be changed, and it can be trusted.
Industry. The wine industry is a very physical industry. This is a bottle of wine, actually from my own winery from here in the north of Israel, Jezreel Valley Winery. And I got to know the wine industry from the inside and seeing all the problems of a $350 billion a year industry that still operates essentially according to rules and business practices from a few hundred years ago. Technology is slowly making its way in, and technology is needed, and particularly blockchain technology. Why blockchain, and why is it so important to the global wine industry? Well, about a third of that $350 billion a year is what we call premium wine, where people really care about the authenticity, what's called the provenance of the wine. Is the wine really coming from that winery? How did it travel to me? How many hands has it passed through till it got to me? And this can make the difference between a wine worth hundreds of dollars or not worth anything at all. So quite important to the global premium wine industry. And the counterfeiting problem is a real problem. E&Y did a study a couple of years ago, particularly focused on the Italian wine industry, that found up to 20% of Italian wine is actually counterfeit. Wine that you'll find on the shelves from premium names. In other regions of the world suffering from similar problems. So it's a real issue, a multi-billion-dollar a year real issue for everyone involved, wine consumers, wine producers, and everyone involved along the way. And what we're doing is trying to bring technology, and particularly focus right now, we're talking about blockchain technology, to how do we ensure that what's coming from the winery is what you get on your shelf and hopefully in your glass and in your wine collection. So we start at Vincent all the way from the actual wine that's in the barrel. We tokenize what's called wine futures, where we create smart contracts where you pre-order wine that's under development through a smart contract that we developed, which sits on the Ravencoin blockchain. And when the wine is being released, you redeem that smart contract and have your wine shipped to you. Along the way, you could transfer that smart contract from one person to another. At the end of the day, the person who's holding the smart contract in their hand, who's holding that token, is the one who has the rights to the wine, which allows actually for an interesting trade to develop, a trusted trade to develop in the industry. In terms of the physical asset, and at the end of the day, you have a physical bottle of wine. And how do you create an unalterable, unhackable, or almost unhackable connection between this physical bottle of wine and a record on the blockchain? So Ravencoin actually was designed to support multiple elements going into the record on the blockchain, including graphic elements through the use of PDF and otherwise, and IPFS. So on that record on the blockchain, which you can access in the future through the Vincent app, right now you can access on a blockchain explorer, you could actually see a physical representation of the bottle. What's more, we're working with both outside vendors and within our own development to create very, very cheap and inexpensive ways for wineries to actually put a physical marking which could be read by a smartphone, a unique per bottle mark, which could be read by a smartphone, which would be almost impossible to reproduce, and would allow for every bottle to be recorded on the blockchain. We hope that will come to the market in 2021.
Question, Jonathan. We leverage technology as far as IoT integrations into not only the laboratories, but the grading devices that come into play. We link what the scales are telling us when the trucks are coming in. We verify it with physical sensors and tanks, and we come up with a certificate that allows us to physically verify that this product has come into play. But there's a little more than just knowing that the product is in the tanks. There's understanding where it came from and what fields it came from. We have a logistic product called Harvex that allows us to not only track as it's being picked up from the fields, but it allows us to track the path that it got there, who got it there, and what process it took when it got to the different facilities. When we put all of this information together, it becomes extremely difficult to forge or fraudulently insert a product into a facility. What that allows us to do is really give paperwork, digital paperwork that has signatures from devices that cannot be manipulated to have proof of the actual items. That really helps the process that Nick is going to talk about or potentially talk about. And when it comes to liens, when it comes to collateral, and when it comes to products that are physically in a place that have banks or different types of buyers trying to verify that information. So we're really shortening the path that it takes to get these documents and get these different verifications in a digital payload that can be verified and cannot be manipulated.
All right. All winners, clearly. I'm definitely going to take some time and invest in Ravencoin. I believe that's available on crypto.com. Also, all of these things are part of why I'm invested in VeChain. I've worked with wine for some time. Purple Toad is one of my favorites, and I've had issues getting bottles that don't taste like they are supposed to, as well as when I worked for Amazon, or Whole Foods rather, and they were talking about going cashless and using RFID codes and doing something similar. So just be aware of the developments that are going on in the retail space. This has been Greenman here with the goods. Get out there and grow.